podcast on the 15th of February 2008. And it's playing again. No, we don't want to play the intro 2 times. Once enough. Once enough. Today we have, we are the GO.Live gaming podcast, and we, of course, talk about Electronic Arts, Bioware, and Anthem. But on slow weeks, when we can't just only talk about those topics, we do touch upon other topics that we might think would be interesting to you as well. We're currently live on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and Mixer. If you don't have time to stay with us and interact with us in real time during the show, then you can check out the VOD after the stream on YouTube, and the podcast version is also available on SoundCloud, iTunes, and through the podcast app of your choice. We do this every Thursday, so if you're listening to the VOD or listening to the podcast after this little thing has been broadcasted, then you're more than welcome to tune in on any sort of platform for Guns of Anthem every Thursday at 8 p.m. UTC +1. That's 7 p.m. if you're in the UK, and so on. Also, if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us some feedback at feedback@gunsofanthem.com. We really need some cool guys to start sending us, or cool people overall, to start sending us emails to the show. And with me today, I have Whiskey Zero, also known as Luke. Hi, man.
What's going up, everyone?
Yeah. We also have Raker, also known as Patrick, per usual. Hey, man.
Hey, how's everyone doing?
Cool. And we also have a new one, a new member who's joined quite recently, and his name is James Brown, and is also known as Drainus, right below me.
Hello, everybody.
How you doing, man?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. Yourself?
Good, good. Why don't you introduce a short little introduction to the audience so they know where you're coming from when it comes to games and
absolutely,
whatever.
Man. Yeah, so hello everybody, I'm James, as Sarge has kindly pointed out, James Brown. All jokes aside, yes, that is actually my name. I
reacted to that the first time I saw it as well. I was like, James Brown, huh? He's got a famous person on the podcast.
So I haven't had a joke about it in at least, 20 minutes? So, no, all good. No, yeah, I'm really excited to be joining the podcast. Big gamer myself, been gaming for as long as I can remember, pretty much. Certainly longer than I care to remember. Mostly a console gamer, been a console gamer for decades. And yes, Console Brothers, Whiskey, Console Brothers.
Console massive.
All right.
Yeah, and
yeah.
over to you.
Oh, cool. What do you work with? What do you do for
it's
living?
The most exciting thing in the world. I work in IT service management.
Sounds
it is
thrilling, man.
Literally, you have to be a special kind of person to find IT service interesting. But I'm him.
Well, awesome. We need those special kind of people here on the show. I think that just adds an extra little spice to things. But cool. Lovely to have you aboard, man. And we're interested to see what you have to
looking forward
add to the team, sort of. So, yeah. But all right. What you guys been up to the last week? Have you... Like, we usually do our weekly update with Chrome when it comes to Monster Hunter World, but we don't have that this time around, so I guess we got a weekly update for on PUBG from Luke or something.
That's right, yeah. We played lots of PUBG, lots of top 5 finishes. There was a patch released during the week, which rolled back some changes which had been made on the console version, which was in response to feedback from the community. They'd gone towards making it more realistic, so vehicles were damaged more easily. They weren't taking as many rounds to blow up, and if you crashed into things, you took more damage if you were riding on board. The community disliked that. They preferred it to be more arcadey, so they rolled that back. And they also put in a fix for a bug they introduced, which meant you couldn't jump out of windows, something that I fell victim to a number of times, where I was trying to exit away from somebody through a window, and couldn't.
All right.
So all they saw was me just jumping up and down, facing away. Was they shot me in the bottom, which I'm sure they found very funny.
Yeah, I guess. So, Patrick, I heard you've been dabbling in the Diablo pot. How's that going?
Yeah, we're almost through with Act 5. Played it through the first time, and it's way too easy because I'm playing the Necromancer, which came out last year. And I don't know, but I think for low level it's way too imbalanced.
All right, cool. I've been interesting to like the Necromancer for Diablo 2 was always my pick. So I wanted to get back into Diablo 3 when that happened, but I just haven't had the time. But it sounds cool. Is it fun?
Yeah, it's fun. You can make corpses explode, which is really funny, and you can play him like a summoner a bit, but it's at the moment too easy for me.
All right. Well, you're probably gonna get harder for further down the line. That usually is the case with that game. But all right, let's move on to what we are going to talk about today. So first, I'm going to do a short little. Just talk about what you can expect from the show today. We are going to talk about Battlefield 1's Apocalypse DLC and some details among that. We are going to talk about an article from Tweaktown, among other sites, stating Nvidia's next generation GPU and what that is going to be called. We are also going to we are going to sort of continue the discussion that we've had the last two times when it comes to streaming and cloud-based stuff, because there has been some speculation about the future of consoles actually being cloud-based, which is quite interesting if you ask me. And we might dabble in some loot box talks if we have time for that as well. We haven't actually dwelled into that deep crevasse like every other podcast and media and forum has done, but we're going to maybe do that as well. So first off, we're going to talk about Battlefield 1. There's going to be a new DLC this month. There's actually no specific date from what I can find, but it's going to be released in February, and we're already in February, so you can expect it to be released very soon. And we do have a couple of maps that we know information about. So, just to talk with other guys, have you checked out any like footage or stuff on the game so far? Luke, you sort of, you're into Battlefield.
Mate, do you know what? It looks fantastic. It looks brilliant. I mean, you got some of the major kind of battlefields that spring to mind when you think about World War One. You've got Passchendaele, and you've got the Somme. And also you have one in a map that's set in Italy, Caporetto. And these are going to be those typical kind of battlefields that you think of when you think of World War One. So it's trench warfare, it's muddy, it's dark, it's dirty, and it's kind of the experience that I was looking for. That was kind of promised, I guess, in the opening map of the single-player campaign when you're running around in the trenches as an American soldier. So I'm very much looking forward to getting my grubby little mitts on this one.
Yeah, I certainly agree. When I heard about Battlefield 1, this was sort of what I was expecting. More trench warfare and stuff like that. But we haven't really got that from Battlefield as of yet. So this DLC for me looks really impressive. From a visual standpoint, it might look a little bit bland when you actually look on videos of that has been released from the early, like, what is the early adopters service called? Do you remember, Luke? Like, there's a service where you can access stuff that is going to, like, patches.
It's the early access program, but you've also got the early access if you are a I forget the name of it now. Very silly, but the paid premium service, Battlefield Premium. So if you are paying for that, which is kind of getting the maps ahead of time, I think it's going to be a week to 2 weeks early. Yeah,
I'm a premium consumer, or not a consumer. I'm part of the creator program for Battlefield one, so I'm a part of that as well. So hopefully I can get hands on the game soon, and I can talk more about it in detail. But we have some quite interesting stuff that has been released about it. We know what the names are going to be called, and also a couple of weapons. So I'm just going to make a quick little summary from what I've been able to dig up. This article that I'm mostly using is from VG247.com, and one of the maps I might actually have to, I don't know if this is German, so I might have to use Patrick for this one, but I'm gonna write it in our chat, and you can see if that makes. It's called like Battle of Passchendaele.
Not that I know that it's German.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Also known as the Third Battle of Ypres.
But I think it's called Passchendaele.
Passchendaele. Okay. All right. This battle took place on the Western Front in Belgium from July to November 1917. The once quaint countryside of the West Flanders has been turned into a nightmarish landscape of blood and mud. Here players will battle across a devastated landscape and search for cover in dugouts and ruined buildings. So this map seems to be a little bit more focused on like really dirty maps where the war itself or the battle itself has been going on for quite some time. So there's basically no trees or no grass left. There's just mud and trenches. And it looks real gritty, and it's quite hard to see players on this one. So it's one, if you like using the environment to your advantage, I feel like this map might be something for you. Also,
absolutely. Or if you feel like going for the full trench experience, you can go over the top into no man's land with your club. And go at it.
Yeah, the real war.
Of course, that was something that was missing, wasn't it, from the original Battlefield 1 release, was this whole sort of ethos of trench warfare. And
yeah,
the developers were very keen to actually stay away from that when they released the game. They were very much of the opinion that everyone thinks that World War One is when everyone thinks of World War One, they think trench warfare, they think stalemate, dugouts, mud and shell holes, and that was basically it, of two opposing army lines just lining up against each other and then going over the top and slaughter through machine gun fire. And to try and get away from that, they deliberately made the game much more fast-paced and much more open and much less ethos on trench warfare, to try and demonstrate actually the wide variety of the theatre of war that was World War One, and all of the different terrain and the different services that the forces found themselves in. And so to then be able to come back and say, now we're going to give you the trench warfare that everyone knows and loves. Well, not everyone knows and loves, but everyone is familiar with. Sorry, that was incredibly poor wording for me. That everyone is familiar with. Now that people are all invested in the Battlefield 1 world and the Battlefield 1 franchise, that it's going to be a major success. I'm certainly really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and of course, the other thing to touch on, of course, is that when the game was released, it was also the 100th year anniversary of the armistice, and of course there was a lot of nervousness around a game that might be seen to be glorifying that particular war being released in the same year as the at the same time, actually October-November time, as the armistice day itself. So I guess they also were holding back a little bit, testing the waters, seeing how the game went down, how it's been responded to, before they then went put a bit of respectful distance between that event and releasing this content.
Yeah,
but they did extremely well with the campaign and the way they put the campaign across from the character's point of view, from the soldier's point of view, and different stories and tales that you heard and within the game. It really brought those characters to life, and it gave it very much a sense of you are the individual whilst you're having your own mission. Everything you do is largely inconsequential to the overall theatre of war itself, the largely futility of your actions, but the actions that you are taking can be fundamental to other people living and dying.
Yeah.
So the way they captured that was really well done, and certainly didn't show any contempt for the war.
They did a really good job of demonstrating the scale, as you say. And actually, I thought it had a certain amount of gravitas to it, oddly, which, our Battlefield game doesn't usually have. So I think they actually did it quite sympathetically, all said and done.
Yep. We have some early gameplay from the DLC on the stream right now. There's some textures missing in this video and stuff like that. That should all be added if you have access to that right now. But yeah, the single player certainly was quite well received when it comes to critics as well. Like DICE are not known for making good single player campaigns, so I quite liked it as well. It was good. But all right, let's move along here so we don't sit on this topic all day. The next map that you can find yourself on is Caporetto, and I think Luke already mentioned this in the passing. And on this map, let's see here if I can struggle with the lag for some reason. You know what? All right, we'll move on to the next map because I'm missing the text here. It's called River Somme. The Battle of Somme, also known as the Somme Offensive, took place in 1969. 1969, that wasn't during the World War I, right?
No.
No.
Why?
That's not right at all.
No, that seems to be some sort of typo. I don't really know. But apparently it's during the months of July to November. Here the British and the French armies fought the German Empire, and it's noted as one of the largest battles on the Western Front. Over 3 million fought in this battle, with 1 million wounded or killed. Here players will face off against enemies that should be scenic wheat fields by the Somme River. Instead, the landscape has been devastated by artillery barrages.
Barrages. Yes.
So this, the River Somme map seems like it's going to be a little bit greener. We're going to have a little bit more landscape. It's still going to be war-torn, but it's not going to be as bad as the first map that we talked about.
My understanding of this particular map is it's really going to show off the real-time events that DICE have become particularly famous for. So you're going to start off with the fields by the Somme being lush and green, and by the end of the map, it will actually be completely turned over and destroyed by artillery barrages, which I imagine you can trigger as players, and that's actually going to be quite epic to watch, especially if you get caught out in the open. I'd imagine that's going to be a tricky one to negotiate.
Yeah, certainly. All right.
They did very well with that, with the San Quentin Scar map.
Yeah,
originally fighting villages, and then with the behemoths coming overhead and the buildings getting destroyed, complete. It's fantastic to watch.
All right, the map that I wanted to talk about, Caporetto. Players will be fighting in mountain trenches near the Isona River, close to Kobarid, a settlement in Slovenia. Here in 1917, that seems a little bit more legit, the Battle of Caporetto took place, which saw the Austro-Hungarians face off with the Italian army. You'll see gameplay footage of the battle in the video above. Yeah, that's just... There's videos. If you want to, I can link this little article in the video description, because it has some videos of each map as well. That is complementary to what we're seeing on the screen right now. So, mountain trenches. What do you say, Luke?
Well, do you know, it reminds me, what was I can't remember the name of it. There's a single player part of the campaign where you start off at the foot of a mountain and you work your way up. You clear the trenches as you go. Yeah. And there's these big artillery pieces on the top. And I think it's going to be very similar. Montegrappa, that's the one. It's going to be very much like that, I think, but more dynamic. I think it's going to have, rather than having a low and a high, it looks like there might actually be 2 high points and like a valley. So you can have some very dynamic fighting happening across the map, which will be a sniper heaven.
Indeed.
But the recent weapon balances that they brought in, I think it's really going to take advantage of that. So again, can't wait to get into that.
Yeah, Montegrappa was certainly a map that has for the entire length of the game's actual existence, has some issues when it comes to balance. Like I think it's the B flag if you're playing operations is really annoying. It's like on a little hill with a large cannon, and you can just camp inside of the cannon like with your whole team, and it's basically it's a real pain to try to get that one. It is.
It's so difficult to take that control point.
Yeah,
almost impossible.
Didn't they address it recently in a patch not too long ago where they made it easier to capture standing on top, so you didn't actually have to go down? You could you could trap the enemy inside the bunker, and then if you could outnumber them on the top, then point.
Yeah. Hopefully, I haven't actually touched the game in the last month or two, so. But if that's the case, that's a good one. But still, you still need to outnumber the team that's below, and that might not always be the case. It's still going to be. I think that's the main issue with that one. But I'm hoping that this mountain trench map will be a little bit more balanced. I feel like the focus on trenches will also open a totally different approach to the gameplay, where you have if you want to, you can engage above the trenches, or you can just slowly progress along the battlefields in the trenches, and that will open opportunities that makes it easier to press forward on modes like operations, for example. So I'm all for the trenches, man. All for the trenches. But yeah,
I suspect it's going to be a lot more fun to play than to be.
Yeah.
But yes, can't wait.
Just on a side note, have you guys played the game Verdun? Or Verdun?
I have played Verdun. It's Verdun. But yeah. I mean, that is good fun. Manic. You can get ground down pretty quickly in that. But that was kind of the experience I think I was hoping for with Battlefield 1 originally, but obviously to a higher spec. So I'm hoping that this next lot of DLC will kind of realize that.
Yeah, certainly. All right, and we also have a couple of new weapons that we know about so far. We are going to get a AA rocket gun for the assault class. That's interesting. I feel like the vehicles themselves have always been quite powerful on a whole different level in Battlefield 1 compared to Battlefield 4. So added ways to actually handle that as an infantry is always accepted, in my opinion. What do you guys think? What's your opinion
excellent.
on that
excellent.
balance?
No, good to get that extra gun in there. There are a few anti-vehicle weapons smattered around the different playing classes, but yeah, having a never hurts. Because honestly, there aren't a huge number of vehicles in the game at any one time, and so the chances of them completely ruling the entire map are quite small. So it's not going to be a game breaker in that sense. You're not going to have a weapon then that's going to be able to annihilate everything, because there's going to be very few situations where it's going to be actually useful. But in those situations, yes, it's going to be.
Yeah, well, that's it. I can see a way where in the trench setting, if you're a particularly accurate, AT rocket gunner, you could put it into a pillbox and clear that out pretty rapid.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see a benefit to that. But whether you can actually manage to get it accurately in or not is another matter altogether.
Yeah, we'll see if that is even. I don't know how a anti-air rocket gun would work in Battlefield 1, since we don't have those lock-on mechanics. But I guess it's going to be sort of a skill gun that is going to be more effective if you actually hit. So, or maybe
it's very good for people who play point-and-click adventure games.
Yeah, I guess. All right, moving along. We have the camera pigeon, which is going to be interesting. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work. We also have.
Is that the one that you got from the? Sorry, Sarge. Is that what you got from the campaign in the Through Mud and Blood campaign story, where you in the tank? There was a section where you had a pigeon that you let loose out of the tank, and it went back to the
I don't know if that is that. I don't know if the camera pigeon is actually going to be gadgets on itself, where you can sort of scout the battlefield. Maybe. I actually.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking it'd be like that.
Yeah, that's just my guess. And after that, we have a couple of weapons. We don't have any stats on the weapons just yet. That hasn't been released. But if these names actually mean anything to you, I guess it's kind of cool to know which games they're bringing or which guns they're bringing into the game. So next up, we have the Shawshat Ribrolls SMG. I'm gonna slaughter these names, I know, but hey. So a new SMG. We also have the Howell rifle, the sort of what they're stating here, the Lee Enfield rifle conversion. Okay, so it's sort of going to be the Lee Enfield rifle, but called the Howell rifle. We're going to get a new LMG called 0818. We're going to have a stationary weapon, apparently, that is going to be called the Livens Projector. Produces a cloud of poisonous gas. That sounds annoying.
Yeah, that's going to annoy a lot of people.
Yeah. And we have the M1917 Enfield rifle. We have the meat cleaver. Now we can chop meat in your kitchen and in your games. That's always nice.
Nice. He wants a steak in the middle of the battle.
Indeed. Just make some improvised shrub. What's it called? What? I don't know. For your
broken. Help.
for your teammates during the gameplay, whatever. Next up, we have the MK6 revolver. Always nice to get some extra revolvers into the game. I always like revolver gameplay. We have the pry bar, which is probably going to be another melee weapon, and we also have the Ross rifle. I think the Ross rifle is going to be the new sniper rifle, right? I think it's called a Ross rifle. But yeah, and there was a new air assault game mode that also was announced with 2 aerial maps. These are going to be called Razor's Edge and London Calling, if I understood this correctly. So that's going to be cool. The previous aerial combat game modes in Battlefield haven't been that interesting, if you ask me. Like the one for Battlefield 4, for example. I played a little bit, but it was just a lock on Rocket Fest. Really, it wasn't that interesting. But now that we don't have that for Battlefield 1, I feel like this is going to be more interesting as a game mode overall.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's much you need much more in the way of skill to be an effective dogfighter in Battlefield 1.
Yeah,
and I like the idea that London Calling. I just love the sound. The idea of flying over London, perhaps, could be good fun.
Yeah, it's going to feature aerial clashes high above the British capital in this new game mode. So. We might actually see some historical buildings on the ground. That would be cool and interesting to see how they.
I bet I feel really guilty if I crash into one.
Yeah, I bet. But something that I always sort of annoyed with dogfighting in Battlefield is that there's always someone who's been playing like hours upon hours upon hours of that. And once you come in and you actually start getting good, you're still going to get owned by that guy because he just nails every shot, and you can have like these dogfights that last like for 10 or 15 minutes, and he's just on your tail, and whatever you do, you can't shake him off. So that's like Annoyance Simulator 2000, whatever.
I can guarantee that guy won't be me. I am rubbish at flying planes in battle.
Yeah,
always have.
You're the guy that you see fly in and then just immediately crash.
Or the guy who uses the planes just to get whatever he wants to get on the actual map. Like takes the plane and then he crashes.
So irritating, those people. You're like, I really want that plane. I want to go and bomb somebody so bad, and then someone beats you to it, and you watch them fly off to distance and bail out.
Yeah,
you just
so annoying.
I want to reach through the screen and strangle them, Saj.
I agree. Man.
Really gets my goat.
Yeah. All right, so that is actually all we have for the Apocalypse DLC details, but we're going to talk more about it in the next coming weeks, I guess. We still don't have an exact date when we are going to get the DLC, which I think is weird since we're already in February, but hey, whatever floats the dice in EA's boats, I guess. But next up, I want to talk about this because I'm a hardware geek and I love checking like news about the hardware stuff all the time. It's something that just it gets to me, man. It gets me hot, I tell you. So we have had some news about Nvidia's next generation GPUs being named after Alan Turing, which is quite cool. If you don't know who Alan Turing is, he was sort of the maker of the first real computer, I guess you could say. There's some arguments towards there being a woman, which I can't recall the name of, being the first one, but he sort of made a computer that broke codes or encoded messages really well.
That's right.
During, I think it was World War II, right?
Yep,
Yes.
he was a very smart mathematician who was pivotal in constructing the algorithm and, as you say, the mechanical computer, which then cracked Enigma, which helped us
Yeah, that's right.
read some of the German naval codes,
Yeah.
or the German naval codes during World War II, and helped us advance the war and break the blockade in the North Atlantic. So very important work.
Some may say that he was one of the key aspects to actually turning that war over on another leaf, sort of.
Very much so.
Yeah, he's an important character. And if you want to know more about him, there's actually an awesome movie called The Imitation Game, which I might have actually, now that I think about it, I could have said that for the last segment and recommended that, but I'm going to do that right now. So, we got this news from Reuters that the Turing will be the new name, or the product name at least, for the Nvidia's new gaming GPU. But the article that I read from tweaktown.com had a couple of speculations of their own, because before there was rumors about the architecture being called Ampere. Ampere is also a measurement for, it has to do with electricity?
It does indeed.
That's all I know. But yeah,
Yeah.
the architecture was rumored to be called Ampere. That is still in the sort of the rumors, as it's going to be something that is going to be introduced, because there's a lot of speculation now that maybe Nvidia is going to release one card for miners and one card for gamers. And there's even been some speculations I've seen on some news sites that the gaming card would actually, on some level, not entirely sure how that would work, block mining, so you couldn't mine on the gaming card, just so that they would be able to, I guess, keep down the prices for the ones that need to buy new gaming hardware, which would make sense. And I think that would please both markets, certainly. So
Sorely need.
yeah, I guess that's the most interesting thing we could take from what's been said in the last couple of days. What do you guys think about a mining specific card and a gaming specific card? Do you think that sounds like a good idea?
I think it is a good idea.
Yeah.
To be quite frank, I think it's a brilliant idea. I have some slight cynical reservations about the whether or not the price will come back down to a more affordable level. That's just me, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, and I kind of really hope I am. But there's a nagging doubt in the back of my mind that says that if a retailer has got a mining card and a gaming card that's dedicated, and the gaming card currently retails for £1,000, why sell it for less than £9?
Yeah,
You're still going to sell it, still going to make a truck ton of money out of it. But
yeah.
I think it's a really good idea. I think that I think that it's quite interesting from Nvidia's standpoint that they are prepared to come out and actually make dedicated cards specifically for the activity of mining. I know this has been somewhat forced on their hand
probably
by the mining community and by the demands that they're making of the card makers, but that is a community and an area that has got so little governance and so little regulation at the moment that putting my webcam has decided it doesn't like this conversation. Its community's got so little governance and so little oversight at the moment, so little legislation, that they could put in all of this effort into making these cards and all of this money into doing, only to have governments turn around 6 months later and say, actually, you know what, we're regulating this to the hilt, it's going to become really expensive, so most of us will stop, or they're going to go the whole hog and start outlawing, which possibly unlikely, but you never know.
It's interesting, because I was looking at it from a slightly different angle. On one hand, you're right, it's very good of them to come up with a separate card for miners and a separate card for gamers, but putting my business hat on, the reason I think they're doing it is because quite often... Business hat.
I like the business hat.
Shorty business hat. What often happens is, the way these crypto coins work is that when the difficulty ramps up on them, they need more and more processing power within these cards in this instance to actually mine effectively. And what often happens is they'll take a jump to something else to make that happen. And then the market gets flooded with very heavily used, granted, but still flooded with used cheap cards, which then get bought by the gaming community, which means that the actual card manufacturer isn't getting their brand new cards into the right hands. And it actually works against them, because it means when these gamers are getting the used cards, they're knackered and they're not really doing what they're designed to do, which actually hurts the core business of Nvidia ultimately. So by creating 2 strands of cards, they're effectively carving off what it has become quite lucrative business for them, because they don't want to get rid of it, but they're carving that off to one side, and then they're able to then flog the cards to the gamers where they're supposed to go. And as you say, James, I don't think you're going to see a marked reduction in cost, because market forces being what they are, they'll still sell. But at least the gamers will be getting their hands on the cards, which I think from our perspective is still a good thing. Yeah.
And it's interesting because the cryptocurrency market, or that whole community, is so volatile as it actually is, and that is actually one of the bigger points that has been brought up with why the GPUs are at the price that they actually are today, because like Nvidia could, of course, they can ramp up production to infinity and meet the demand that currently is on graphic cards, and that would bring down the prices that are currently skyrocketing. But then if the cryptocurrency market would crash, then they would sit with 1 million graphics cards on their hands, and they would make such a huge loss. So they can't really do that, but they still... It seems like from their own statements that they want to focus on the gaming community, because that's their core audience. Those are the ones that will buy cards over and over again and like interact on a whole different level with what they're actually creating and doing. So they want that to be their main focus, which is why they have gone out to retailers and say like, oh, come on, please just set a limit to 1 or 2 cards per consumer, and don't sell your entire stock to one guy, because that won't work, and that will hurt our, even though we're making money, that will hurt our business in other ways. So if they would make 2 specific cards, that would certainly make a lot of sense from a lot of different perspectives. But yeah, let's move further along. And there was some special speculation, like Turing has been said to be the new name for the gaming GPU, but this article made a quite interesting sort of statement that they thought that Turing would be the miner's card because Turing himself has roots in cryptography. See that connection? So the Ampere card architecture would be for gamers, and the Turing architecture would be for miners. And from just looking at it from the name and the guy himself, sure, that would make sense. But we'll have to see in the end where that actually ends up. But I thought that was a little interesting speculation there. And from what we can see, Nvidia kicks off its GPU technology conference late next month, and we're hearing that the company will be launching its new Turing GPU architecture during this GTC 2018. So late next month, we actually will get solid confirmation on, or most likely we will get solid confirmation on the next architecture for GPUs, and maybe a schedule on when we can get those GPUs, which is quite interesting because I feel like that is going to be the moment where I upgrade my PC, because I feel like 4K gaming and all of that will be really interesting on the next GPUs. From the earliest tests that people have been able to do on the architecture, it seems like the cards we're getting are, quote from, I don't know if it was this article or another article I read, monsters. So take whatever you want from that. But yeah, it certainly sounds promising.
Watch your children at night.
Yeah. Indeed. The graphic cards itself like grows legs and fangs and whatever, and just crawls out of your PC.
Attacks the kids.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It eats your kids and destroys their future through gaming. All right, but that's enough for that little news subject. And we're going to move over to another one, which is going to be sort of, as I said, a continuation of what we talked about last week. And that is cloud-based gaming consoles. Some speculate that cloud-based gaming is the future of gaming. But this time around, we had, let's see if I can get his name up. We had a game maker by the name of Hajime Tabata, which is a creator on the Final Fantasy team. I don't know if he's the lead or what he's doing over there. He's the director of a Guns Christmas. And there's a notification that shouldn't be there. Whatever. Continue. All right. Hajime Tabata, the director of Final Fantasy 15. All right. So that's what he's doing with his career. He made a statement that he's pretty positive that the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox 2 will be cloud-based gaming consoles. And this would really bring down prices on gaming consoles, because basically you would need like a small little device that you place in your home, and that would access other hardware and other services that would be way more powerful, and that hardware itself could probably like be shared or over a couple of systems, and that way they would save a lot of money and a lot of costs. And yeah, it sounds interesting, but there's certainly going to be a lot of problems with cloud-based gaming, just because of what we talked about last week. That is infrastructure. First and foremost, like you would need a really good connection if this would be even viable. And also we're talking like games in the first-person genre, or games that need really snappy reaction times. Those games are going to hurt, because you're never going to get the minuscule millisecond reaction time that you can get on a PC where you are gaming dedicated on a system that you would get from a cloud-based service. But I would be really interested to hear what you guys can take from all this. What do you think?
Well, first of all, sorry, Patrick, but it sounds like you don't come. you don't get to play on the next gen with us.
The future hates me.
Yeah. But that's the point, isn't it? You know, you need decent infrastructure, and not everybody has it. So from that standpoint, it would be quite risky. But the other side of it is you can see the logic to it. And I think, didn't a certain Josh Climatism predict at the beginning of the year that this would be the way it goes? So
yeah.
you know, it makes sense. It really does. If you think about it, you pay your subscription and you don't have to worry about the hardware because they'll upgrade it for you in the background. It's a level playing field for everybody, providing have the decent internet. I think it is probably the future, but I think it's going to be one of those cases where, as you say, infrastructure is going to have to catch up. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see how well it works, and maybe they just release it in certain territories initially.
Yeah, maybe. It would be really interesting to see. I don't really know. Sorry, James. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, go for it, mate.
It would. It would be interesting to see how, like, we are already at a point where a lot of services are almost entirely internet based. Like, of course, you can buy games on a disc for PlayStation 4 and for Xbox and so on, but I think the majority of the consumer base on those platforms actually utilize the internet feature, the internet store, or the different store platforms that they actually have more. I don't have any actual numbers for that, but that was just I'm gonna make a wild guess to say that's true, because I feel like that would be weird if the disc purchases would still be as strong with that option. I don't know. But yeah,
would it negatively affect someone like Steam?
If it would, I don't know. I don't think so.
Question.
I mean, the PC community will probably not move away. It totally depends on how attractive a price they could get on these cloud-based gaming consoles, because if you look at, I'm going to make the same example I did last week with the Steam Link, they pushed that out for a meager $5 during the holidays, and that is basically what that is. It is a little device that accesses your computer, so that you can use the hardware of your computer and sit and game wherever you want. It's basically that concept that they're going for, or that they would go for. So we could talk about a little device that is only like $100 or whatever. So if that's the case, then it's going to be really interesting for a lot of people, I think.
And from Steam's point of view, they can still shift titles, even if it's just change in the way it's delivered, rather than a digital download to your local hardware. You're just unlocking it on some remote hardware. It'd be like a Netflix for games, wouldn't it? It would be. Yeah, it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, we talked about Utomic last week, which is sort of aiming for something like that, and the Nvidia service as well. If this proves as a successful concept, then certainly that would be really interesting for Valve and Steam to sort of approach as well. Maybe they will have the same store that they have right now, but you have multiple options. Like you could subscribe to and get a certain amount of games on Steam, for example, and you could stream those, or you could have a more cloud-based solution as well. I don't know. It would be interesting, but certainly I feel like if that is going to be an popular method of gaming, then Steam will have to adapt to those changes. So that would be interesting. It would be nice to see something actually happening to Steam, because that has just been sitting there raking in cash for years upon years. Literally. Like, of course, they make small changes every now and again, but they can't be too much when it comes to...
Steam prints money just by having its server.
Yeah, basically.
But they gotta step up their security game if they want something like this. So then you will have no data on your computer anymore, so it's even more easily hacked than before.
Yeah.
And you lose all your data, basically.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, what with obviously with a lot of PC gaming, there's a large community around modding. Would that still be possible on a subscription-based or a streaming-based service?
Yeah, I mean,
I would have thought maybe not, because you're not accessing content
That's a
that
great
you own.
point.
Yeah,
You're accessing content that is provided by the developers, by Steam maybe, but it's provided by a third-party service. And if you don't ever get the file, how do you mod it? Or if you have to buy an extra kit to allow you to then produce a mod that you can then upload, which other people can then access, maybe?
That's not the only problem, I think. There's another problem from the hardware standpoint. You usually download the mods and install the files, and sometimes they're even volatile to the hardware, to the computer itself. And if you don't actually own the thing that downloaded on, are you even allowed to download those mods?
The way I would see it working would be in a similar way to the way that it works if you want to modify an app, a web app, or a mobile app. So the idea is you would download an SDK. Yeah. As a developer, you download the SDK, you have access to the files that way. You work on it locally. You spin up a remote instance. You push it up to there so that it's separate from the main files. You get it working, you get it approved, and then it's merged. And it'd be its own standalone thing. But it's going to be way more involved. It'll probably involve money, I should think. So it certainly won't be as free and open as it is now with the current modding community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Also, From a consumer's point of view, if you're going to say pick something out the new Total War game, you're going to get that on stream. What's the experience going to be like from a consumer point of view if you say that you want to stream, say, the new Britannia Total War game out soon this year, and then you're presented with, you can have the OG copy, or you can have modded by XYZ, or modded by 123, or modded by blah 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 blah. Yeah, you end up having huge numbers of the same game because each one has been modded by a different person.
Yeah.
Is that going to end up with a hugely bloated store or library?
Yeah, well, one solution could be like you have the game on the cloud service, and then if the developers want to support modding, then you can have an option where in the service, like in Steam, you have a page that says mods, and then you go to as a modder, you would upload the mods to the actual service, and then you just tick a couple of boxes, and when the game loads, it loads with those mods as well. I feel like something like that would be feasible if the mods themselves and the game were on the same cloud-based or whatever we're talking about service. I think that it has to be something like that. That would be the solution for that. I don't know.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. But all right, we had the plans to talk a little bit about loot boxes, but we barely have enough time to actually say the actual topic of us talking about loot boxes. So we are going to move over to the last segment, and we're going to move that conversation probably over to next week, if not a lot of other interesting things come along during that time. So our last segment, that is called Tell Me What to Do Until Next Week. Yeah. Is a segment where we give you a couple of suggestions on what to do until next week. A couple of things that you maybe can consume or that you can activate yourself with. We'll have to see what these guys have come up with. So, to start off, let's see here. Luke, do you have something for us?
I do. It's a series on Netflix called Altered Carbon. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Yeah,
but it is
I've seen
amazing.
It's good, right?
It is. It's really good.
What's it about, Luke?
So the premise is... what's it about, Luke? The premise is... it's set in the future where humanity has developed a way of implanting a hard drive for your memories, a hard drive for your soul into the base of your neck. So when you die, you are unplugged from that body, plugged into another, and you continue your life as if nothing happened. And in this world, if you get put in prison. You don't have your body put in prison. They just put your hard drive in cold storage, effectively. That's broadly the kind of universe. I'm not going to go into the storyline because that spoils it. But one thing I would say is there is a lot of nudity. I was watching it at lunchtime at work today, and I had to turn it off because out of nowhere came a gentleman's sausage right across my screen.
Is it on Game of Thrones levels, or what are we talking about?
Oh, it's beyond Game of Thrones.
Oh, it
levels.
is.
It seems like every other scene has some kind of nudity. So, viewers, if you are younger of a
nervous disposition,
a weak or nervous disposition, maybe wait till you're a little older.
Yeah.
But I highly recommend it. I'm 3 episodes in, I'm completely gripped, and can't recommend it highly enough.
All right. There's also the one reason we could recommend it as well. The main actor is actually Swedish.
Oh, there we go.
Joel Kinnaman, or Joel Kinnaman, I guess. He's the same actor that played RoboCop in the re-relaunch of.
I feel Whiskey is probably intimately familiar with her now.
It's a guy, though. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as you said it, I was kind of going, yeah, it's a dude, and then I thought, unfortunately, yes, I am.
Yeah. All right, interesting. I'll certainly have to look into that. Patrick, my man, we haven't let you talk too much this episode, so.
Yeah, that's because I'm not really a Battlefield player.
Yeah, no worries, man.
And my pick is a little board game named Pandemic Legacy Edition,
Okay.
and it's similar to Plague Inc. but reverse. So you are actually curing the diseases instead of contaminating the entire world. And it's a 4-player co-op board game. You can also play it on Tabletop Simulator for Steam. And pretty fun. And the second thing would be Faye comes out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's something.
Yeah, that's certainly
true.
That's certainly something that we need to mention, that Faye comes out tomorrow. So we'll have to see if that game actually delivers on that. All right, Patrick, were you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right, cool. Then we are going to move over to our new guy, James Brown. Are you?
Hey. Yeah, no. My thing for you today is for Xbox players.
Oh.
Sorry, console war. Don't worry, I've got something for PS gamers or PC. But Xbox gamers, it's a game called Zombie. It's out on Xbox Gold. If you have an Xbox Gold subscription, you can download it for free at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it is your typical zombie survivor game. It's set in London. And you play as a character, you wake up, you pretty much got nothing, and you've been told where to go and guided around the streets of London by this person who's talking to you through a tannoy. You have no choice but to trust him and what he says, which at the start of the game is relieving, at least as the game goes on. I'm not going to go too much further. But yeah, it's a good game. It's pretty solid, if not spectacular, but it's a good zombie survival game if you like zombie survival games. And it's available to download for free, so no reason not to, really. The second thing, for those PlayStation gamers who do not have access to Xbox Live, or for those PC gamers who hate console, if you do not want to play Zombie, instead, I suggest you take a trip to England and go to Bletchley Park, where you can indulge in the Alan Turing Museum. And you can go around Bletchley Park, where they actually performed all of the code-breaking work. You can learn all about Alan Turing, his life, what he did, the people he worked with. I've been there myself. It is an excellent day out.
Yeah, I certainly have to look into that. I love that kind of stuff. So that was a good topical suggestion. Good work, man. Good work. You get a passing grade on your first appearance on the podcast.
Thank you.
All right. So last week we had a book recommendation from our fellow Josh that isn't here today, but I was going to follow up on that little path, and I'm going to recommend The Lies of Loch Lamora. The series itself is called Gentlemen Bastards. And it's sort of in the same vein of what he recommended last week, which was, let's see here, The Name of the Wind, I think the book was called. This time around, we're talking about a couple of just the first premise is that you know that Loch Lamora, the main protagonist, is a orphan, and he gets adopted into this weird gang that call themselves the Gentlemen Bastards, and they're thieves, and they do thieving in a lot of interesting and cool ways. They don't do the thieving that you think of normally. They do the thieving of, like, they put on a show on the streets that is totally over the top and ridiculous, and everybody loves it. But during when that happens, maybe someone goes into a store that has been abandoned and take a lot of stuff and so on. So they're really smart about how they approach everything. And the book itself is written by a guy called Scott Lynch, and he's really talented when it comes to writing stories that you can't really guess what's going to happen next, and you're always surprised. And the interactions between these characters are actually really wonderful. They're male cast, so if you have something against mainly male protagonists, I think in the first book there's like a gang of 5-6 dudes that run around having fun, and it's a really good time. It's a really well written book. I listened to it in audiobook form during work, and I can strongly recommend that as well. I think it's Random House that does that recording as well, and they always do really solid recordings of books. So I can recommend that, the Gentlemen Bastards series. So now you have, yeah. So you guys should certainly look into that if you like fantasy. It's a little bit fantasy based. It's a little bit more grounded in reality than The Name of the Wind that got recommended last week. That's a little bit more heavy on the fantasy side. But we still have the same sort of premise where everything's going really well for them, and then everything goes to hell, basically. And that seems like a good little premise for that kind of world setting and those kind of stories. So can really strongly recommend that one. All right. That is going to be the end of this show, everyone. So if you enjoyed the show, I'm going to repeat myself. Send us emails at feedback@gunsofanthem.com. Send us questions, send us feedback, send just a hi, and let us know that you actually exist. When we are on so many platforms, it's hard to actually keep track of everyone. That's one of the downsides of trying to be seen. But hey, so let us know that you exist on over at our email service. And also, if you are listening to the podcast, then thank you. If you want to access the podcast, we're on any sort of podcast app that you probably can get your hands on. We upload the feed first hand to SoundCloud, and then that is added to iTunes automatically. And if you are watching the VOD on YouTube, then thank you, because you're actually supporting us a little bit with progression in maybe getting some cash in the future. So thank you for that. Also, interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're on Twitch and YouTube, and almost anything. Sort of. We're not on LinkedIn yet. Maybe we should get on LinkedIn. I've heard a lot of things about LinkedIn recently. But yeah. So, that's it for this time around. And thank you for watching. I'm Christian, also known as